And good morning, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Pass and Av Sports Show. I'm your host, James Scorza, with you, and with me, as always, is a group of companions on this very important Saturday morning. Joey Marks, happy Memorial Day, and good to see you again. Good morning, my good friend.
Good morning, Philadelphia. Good morning, James. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Happy to start the summer, although it doesn't feel like summer quite outside. But we have a great special guest with us this morning, our old boss, mentor, and all things awesome, Big Al Zaffiri. Good morning, Al.
Good morning,
Morning,
brother.
gentlemen. Gentlemen, it's always good to talk with you. I miss doing this more often.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We got a jam-packed show here today. So the first thing we'll talk about is the Eagles' Tush push getting resurrected. Phillies getting red hot after a couple wins against the Rockies, and especially a close game last night against those Athletics up in Sacramento. I keep on forgetting they're not in Oakland anymore. And maybe we'll get into Sixers or Flyers talk. But Joe, we got a jam-packed show on this Memorial Day. So simply put, where do we begin?
Well, we begin with the world champions of football, the Philadelphia Eagles, get a victory. But wait a minute, they didn't play a football game, but they
Right.
got a victory in our hearts with regaining and having the tush push back for next season. And I say for next season because you never know what's going to happen in the NFL. So, Al, I'll get your first impressions. What do you think about the tush push being, held up and able to be utilized this coming season for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Listen, to be honest with you, I was kind of all geared up for them to lose the ability of the tush push. And honestly, I don't even care if they could do the quote unquote tush push. I'm just glad that the NFL, and at least some people and the owners and the coaches and all that stuff, felt it necessary to preserve some of the of football. Because tell me, I love people when they tell me it's not a football play. I've never heard a football player say that. To be honest with you, I've heard media analysts and coaches try to say that just to bang their point home, but it is a football play. Go back to the early days of football. That was the only kind of play that they had. Passing the ball was a rarity in itself.
Mhm.
But that was more the reason I'm glad it went through, because it's just this. It's not it's not like they're breaking any rules. They're having some. The only advantage that they have over people is that they can do it. One of the big teams that were a proponent, or not a proponent, but against it, I should say, was the Buffalo Bills. Who ran it the second most? The Buffalo Bills. But why
Right.
couldn't they do it? They couldn't do it. If the Buffalo Bills could do it as well as the Eagles could, or at least close enough to it, they wouldn't even been this vote wouldn't have been even close, right? But
Mhm.
that's the problem. It's not because of they're breaking rules or they're bending rules. They have the recipe's out there, but nobody's willing to follow the recipe. Nobody's willing to look at the largest and most athletic offensive line in all of NFL right now. Yes, Jalen Hurts with his tree trunk legs, with guys like Saquon Barkley behind him, now going to be AJ Dillon behind him, possibly. That's where the advantage is. They just do it well, and they put the right personnel in it. And I always told people, if you go back, I actually went back when this whole argument went in my free time, and just looked at like a good bunch of the tush pushes, and I think it's the name really that throws people off. If you look at a lot of them, there's not much tush being pushed. It's a lot of they're right behind them. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
they're not putting their hands on them and really pushing forward very much. You know what I mean? And that was really the question, and that's honestly why it didn't go through, because the literature read that you can't use another player to push or throw forward to advance the ball or the ball runner, right? Well, what happens if a guy catches the ball, hits that right there at that first down line on that fourth and whatever they were going, and those linemen or the running back or somebody just comes up, if a running back's running the ball and they're about to break a first down to turn this game around, and somebody, those linemen come up from behind and push him just enough forward to get the first down. And I think that's what scared some players. But if you look at the teams that voted for it, outside the Eagles, of course. They were all teams like with old school smash mouth football coaches. Look at those like Mike Vrabel, Campbell over in Detroit. Just guys. Even though I think the weirdest ones who were with us, I really thought that would be against us. Notice it was only like all AFC teams. What's up, Broken Bell? The Dolphins. I really thought maybe the Dolphins, because they're more of a high flying circus like offense, and the whole Vic Fangio thing kind of might have left a bad taste in their mouth. But hey, listen, at this point, I really don't care if they ever run it again. It's no two ways with it. You could go against Green Bay and run the push for one series every play and just keep pushing your way down the field, or never run it again. And either way, it's a total slap in their face.
Yeah, I listened to Jason Kelsey on the morning show the other day, and he kind of explained a lot of what he discussed in the meeting with the dynamics, the science behind it, that there was more to it than just a quarterback sneak or push. One of the things that was brought up was, it really starts at that offensive line.
Mhm.
And those offensive linemen kind of set the runway for Jalen Hurts. And so even if Jalen gets pushed, it's like you said, Al, he's not really getting like pushed as hard as you would think, because those offensive linemen are already doing the work for them. I mean, that essentially the offensive linemen have already given him the yard. All Jalen really has to do is kind of push and lean forward on them without hurting one of them. Like, that's one of the things Kelsey had said before. It's
a leverage thing. I mean, if you really look at the tush push play, the lineman, it's low man wins. You know where the advantage is. The only advantage that they have is every advantage of every offense. They know the snap count. Mm-hmm. They know when that ball's coming. And that that has to be one of the, how do I put this? That's how they play this to their advantage. And like you said, Jason Kelsey was talking about this, right? He's the godfather. I mean, when they put this together, it was definitely a Stoutland and the offensive coordinator with Nick Sirianni but they put this together knowing Jason Kelsey was at the helm. He's the real leader behind it, knowing how to communicate, how to how to know when Jalen's ready, because it's not a typical snap count. All right, guys, we're going on 3, we're going on 2, we're going on black, like we're used to from Pee Wee football and high school football and things like that. It's all about the quarterback's hand is underneath the center, and it's just a flick of the fingers on the inner thigh. Like, the only person who knows and can feel it is really the quarterback and the center. So that's why it really depends on that center, not just the O-line, but the center themselves. They were lucky. That's, don't tell me that Cam Jurgens being handpicked to be, the heir apparent to Jason Kelsey had nothing to do with that play, because not saying it had all to do with that play. They were looking for somebody with a Jason Kelsey-esque abilities or better. And let's be honest, I think Cam Jurgens can make a career, if he continues on the trajectory of his career, statistically could be a better center than Jason Kelsey. Maybe not the public face and the lovable character that we're used to seeing, but statistically, as a football player, could be a better football player than Jason Kelsey.
So, Al, do you think that this is the end of it? Like, do you think that next offseason, we're going to have the same debate and the same concerns and the same owners meeting and voting and everything? Do you think that this is going to happen next offseason, the voting?
Yeah, I mean, I think I say yes. Probably yes. Especially if the Eagles do really well or go and win it all. Like, if they play the kind of dominant football that they played this year, they would probably they would probably fall into that. They would probably start voting again, I would say. Broken Bell, anytime. Send me a message. Anytime, guys. Love you guys. But it's they really should have to, in my eyes, to be honest with you, Joe, it's been voted on twice. It's been a conversation every offseason. at this point, it's like you have to. They're going to change it. They're going to have to change. They lost this time. They're going to figure a way out of just changing the verbiage, maybe saying, no runners behind the running back, or whoever's behind center can't have hands pushed on them. There's got to be a distance, or this, that, and the other. They'll find some way to rework it. Like I said, the verbiage is what really helped the Eagles keep it this year. And part of me, like I said, hoped it got banned. A little part of me, so the Eagles can go out and have the same like listen, they tried selling it to you as many different ways. It's an injury thing. There's no statistics showing any injuries with this, right?
Right.
They tried telling you it's not it's not a football play. So far from the truth, it's not even funny. Right. The one thing they won't tell you is what they should be telling you, because it's what the answer is, because the NFL worries about the casual fans. We see this in a lot of different mediums outside of sports and everything. I was on a show for a Marvel Comics / MCU podcast a couple weeks ago, right? They were talking about all the changes at Marvel and all that stuff, and they invited me on the show, and I came on and we talked about it, and I said, well, remember, they're going to do things because they're trying to get the average person. They're not worried about the hardcore fans like the Eagles fans. They're worried about the people or passerbyers watching it and saying it's not an exciting play. And again, I fight you on that one, because look at this. Every time they get short yardage, right? You hear the announcers, their voices tick up. They're sitting there going, you know what's coming. Nobody does it better than Philadelphia. And that's where it hurts us, because it looks like, it is an advantage to us because we do so well with it. But it's only advantage because we have the secret sauce. We invented the sauce. We know the recipe. We're putting it out there. You can go and taste the sauce, right? You can see the sauce. You can break down the video. I mean, it's not 1997 anymore. It's not the 80s where you got grainy TVs and video cameras and you can't really look in there. It is 2024, 2025. You can get these 4K and 8K cameras, and we all know we've seen the all 22s. All the camera angles. A good friend of mine, a family friend for many years, he works for NFL Films, and he's one of the guys. He does all the California stuff, but he's one of the guys who do all the. There's a whole set of camera crew there, right, for just the NFL. It has nothing to do with like what you see on TV, right? It has nothing to do with it maybe some stuff that you see on social media, camera angles. You're like, oh, I didn't see that on TV. Because that's their camera people. So they can see up Jason Kelsey's nostrils when he started doing it to see what he was thinking, and they still couldn't replicate it.
I don't know if Jason appreciates that invasion of privacy, but you know what? You are who you are.
Right.
So to switch gears a little bit, we hadn't talked to you in a while, and I was curious, what's your opinion about the Eagles draft class this past draft? Do you think Howie got it right again, or do you have some skepticism?
Well, Joe, we've talked how many times have we talked about draft classes over the years? I mean, more times than we like to count, right? But you have to go by. I always have to preface this when we talk about the draft weeks or months later, even into the season. You have to always preface this on paper. Always use the term on paper. I really love what they did, especially the first couple picks, the first 3 picks, I would say. I was a little skeptical of the bopping backwards. They kept pushing backwards. I mean, give Howie give him his roses. He really turned, what do we have, like 7, 8 picks to like 12 picks or 10, whatever it was.
13. We went from 10 to 12, but then we have 13 for next draft.
Yeah. Wow. So he also parlayed them into next draft. So, I mean, which is great, because that's what people don't get. There's another, that was the other thing I've never understood, how people ever understood Howie's secret sauce. I mean, outside the contracts, I understand maybe you don't have the inner workings of his contracts, but seeing what he does, he's not picking 13 players next year. He's going to use them to move up and get other players, because here's the other thing is you got more contracts needing to be signed late next year. Jalen Carter. I mean, they took their 5th-year option on Jordan Davis. Quinyon Mitchell's going to come right behind him. You got a lot of guys who are going to be, needing these contracts, so they're going to stay young, and it's what they're doing. keep a lot of young good players, and then get a couple savvy vets, and see what you can do with it. But like I said, round one, Jihad Campbell, if he wasn't injured, he would have been a lot higher up on the list of NFL. He would have never been there. So again, patience, and they were trying to get him too. They still got him. They only had to trade up one spot with the Chiefs to get him, because I hear the people were kind of like scratching their head if the Chiefs weren't taking him. Why did they go up one spot? Well, apparently the Chiefs were on the phone talking to somebody else who's trying to get Jihad Campbell because they saw he was still available. And what did they do? They got their Alabama guy. You know it was going to be, right? It was going to be a Bulldog, right, James? Or it was going to be an Alabama guy. You know, and why do I love Alabama? I always said it's kind of a running joke in my family. What's Alabama's mascot? What's his name? Big Al. So, of course, always part and parcel of the Alabama guy. But Makuba, Andrew Makuba, right? Great safety addition. He played with Quinyon, right? And he, you know, so he's going to have that little familiarity. I always said there's a plus minus, but I think in this case, when you draft somebody, it's a much more of a plus. Tell me the Georgia Bulldogs coming in and seeing other Georgia Bulldogs there, kind of like being able to like take Jalen Carter, right? There was a lot of stuff coming around him coming out. Maybe he was a little bit of an attitude problem. Maybe he was a little bit of some issues to deal with going in with him. Mm-hmm. But don't tell me having like James, your favorite, and you know what, my favorite too, because I just hope the man stays healthy is Nakobe Dean. Because I think he's going to be a stud. I remember when they picked him and we were all together, me, you, and Joe. We were over at Marty McGee's doing that draft night, and we all went nuts. And I was so happy for you, but I was so happy for the Eagles. I just hope the guy can stay healthy. But don't tell me having Nakobe Dean didn't help kind of keep his head on straight. Like put his, I don't know if he could put his arm around him. It might not be tall enough. Maybe it would be like, come here, Jay. Let me sit down. Let me talk to you for a second. This is the Eagles. This is what it is. Don't F it up. Don't do something stupid. You have the ability. Here's what Philadelphia is like. You have an ability to be a god here in the city of Philadelphia and have a tremendous historical career. Just fall in line with the rest of the Eagles organization, the atmosphere that they have, and that's it. So don't tell me having Andrew Makuba working with Quinyon gives him a little bit more relaxed, and then he gets to work with like Coop. He gets to work with all the other guys and really start to study and I hate using this, euthanize, not youth, and euthanize the whole defense. And I still would like to see another savvy vet in there, but you know what? It's almost like we always say Stalin you. You just plug anybody in Stalin you, and here Jeff Stalin can make them great. Well, Vic Fangio is kind of falling into that category because, I mean, listen, some guys got some bags this year off his back, and I wonder how well they're going to be. Like Milt Williams, I think he's going to be a great player. Don't get me wrong, but is he going to be the same Milt Williams he was here, not having a Jalen Carter next to him or Jordan Davis right behind him or anything like that? Those are all the kind of things. Josh Sweat. Really like Josh Sweat. Talk about a resurgence. How to take a pay cut. Got a cut. Can't come back. He got paid. He got his bag. But I even think Josh Sweat knows he's not Josh Sweat without some of these guys behind him. Right. But my favorite, my steal of the draft. And again, this is a lineman. I'm always a lineman first, defensive or offensively. Ty Robinson, man. That dude is, what do they call? I forget what they had a nick, White Rhino or something,
they call him the Dancing Bear too.
The Dancing Bear, yeah. They have like a lot of big names, but he's fast and he's big and he's going to complement that line. And you're going to see him. I really think he's going to be. I think because Jihad Campbell could. It all depends on his health. But if you're going to say, Al, who do you think could plug and play start a game? I think it's going to be Ty Robinson.
Wow.
That's an interesting. I mean, look, that defensive line's already stout. To put him in there and plug. And look, I agree with you. Milt Williams and Josh Sweat. There's an old saying that I love. It's you either go for checks or you go for championships. Mm-hmm. And some guys will just stay for the chance of having a championship. Lane Johnson's a prime example of that. The guy just keeps restructuring his contract and saying, no, take a little bit back. Let's get more players here. Let's be competitive.
Well, here, in all honesty, Lane's not really losing.
No.
He's just getting it more up front. Like that's the one part that people really never understood with Howie, and I guess I get it because they don't have the inner workings of his contracts, but he finds the loopholes in the NFL, so they're getting paid. They're just getting it more up front. They're actually guaranteeing them more because of the cap hit. If they turn more of it into like bonus money, and I'm not exactly on this. This is, if I could do this, I'd probably be working right next to him. But they could take more of that money and turn it into bonus money and upfront money, and take it off the cap. So it's just like, but they have to pay them, and we've also seen them turn them into ghost years that are guaranteed. I mean, they're still paying some players; they're not even on the team anymore. So I mean, but they are handling it well, where it's not hurting the cap. And every time we hear, Eagles are in cap trouble, it's just like, I don't even know why we have this conversation.
How we just uses it. How we just uses, like, if that ever happens, as like his own version of Sudoku. He's like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it.
Listen, Howie did have some problems with the cap. Like his ideas were, and I think this was early on, like 2016, 17, 18, 19. I think you saw like a lot, like they were paying a lot of guys past their prime. They definitely listen. I was on. We did I think we were. Might have been Joe. I know you were, James. I mean, you might have been on the show too.
Yeah.
When we were doing the 2020 NFL draft. Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
We were still. On that, I know Joe, James. I wasn't sure. I'm trying to remember. It's so far. It feels like forever ago, lifetime ago. But
yeah. I forget too.
But we were all on there, and I was not against Jalen Hurts, but I was upset with it because I'm like, I thought we were supposed to be building around Carson, and we didn't, and all that fun stuff. That's kind of where like Howie got lucky. I don't think that was like all about like all that stuff, but a lot of times it's better to be lucky than good is a term I always like to say, but he was smart enough. He's smart enough to learn that I was paying too much, and then they got into some cap hell coming to 2019, 2020, and he got himself out of it. He was able to get out of the contract for Carson Wentz, which was a huge thing, and take the Colts, even got a first-round pick out of it. So that's where he learned, and now he's smartened up. Like it's business. Remember the cap issue led to a Lombardi Trophy? Yes, it did. Because what did they do? If you think about it, there was a lot of actually in 2017, there was a lot of one-year contracts.
Yep.
Chris Long, for instance, a lot of our depth pieces came from guys who had a little bit left in the tank, maybe a little bit longer, a little older, or looking for a stopgap between their next team to maybe get a paycheck. Kind of like Josh Sweat did with us this year, but they did lead to that. Like Broken Bell's absolutely right; they led to it, but it also got him in trouble, and that's what led to the 2020. And they had to make the 2020, 2021. That's really where Howie won me back, and they did that. He made up for his mistakes, because I was off the Howie train for a while. Joe, like I said, we talked about this a lot. I was like, move on, because he was, to my eyes, he was trying to be the smartest man in the room with his talent evaluation, and maybe he wised up and started listening to some of his talent guys better, or just figured a way out better to just try not to always find this dime in the rough, but go for it. Like when they went and got Devonta Smith, Heisman winning trophy guy, right? The best wide receiver in the draft at the time. He was available, and they went and got him. It wasn't like I said, and everybody's like cheering him. See how he did it? I'm like, well, you know what? He did the right thing. It's not like he did a crazy smart thing that nobody could think of doing. And here's the thing: is if Devonta Smith turned out to be a bust, you can't really get on Howie on that. He went and got one of the best players available in the draft, and that's a developmental thing. But he got better at his drafting. He got better at his contracts, and he got less emotionally attached.
First Heisman Trophy winner the Eagles picked up in 40 years. I mean, you got to keep in mind is that Howie, I look at like Howie's progression, much like me and James, and even you, maybe Al, like in this industry with podcasting and marketing yourself and putting on a good production. Like you're not the same when you started as what you are right now. Like you learn through, trial by fire. And I
Mhm.
think when you talk about the 2020 season and 2021 season, like you do about Howie, I think that was his measuring stick of like, okay, I'm either going to get buried by this and never see the light of day again, or I rectify this, correct the shit, course correct, and I do the make the hard decisions, like firing, Doug Peterson, like getting rid of Carson Wentz and taking that extreme, cap hit and getting out of cap hell, and even like you said, getting a first round pick for a problem quarterback is never an easy deal to kind of, sell to an opposing team. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I want to dive into James. Can you pull up the graphic of the schedule? I want to get
Certainly.
your preliminary prediction and your take on the upcoming Eagles schedule, Al. So you can give me your preliminary record, as we always say. You have the reserve the right to change it when we get closer to the season. But what do you see? What are you thinking it comes to the Eagles schedule?
I love Joe how you gave me that caveat of changing it, because me and you used to argue to death on this one that it means nothing what we think now. But I'm saying 11 to 12 wins, to be honest with you,
Mm.
for the Eagles. This is a gauntlet, and I want to tell you why. It's kind of the in betweeny stuff that really gets you. I mean, you got to start the season early, a little earlier than everybody else. You ended the season later and against an opponent who didn't even make it to the playoffs, right? So think about it. Since early January, Dallas has been licking their wounds, right? And here comes the Eagles, who have played all the way out to mid to late February. Been on a tour. But listen, one thing I can tell you from at least media they're putting out there, it looks like they've all just worried about the season, moved right past the Super Bowl after a couple weeks and back to business. But tell me what the only greater opponent I think I could have chosen week one to hang the banner on right now would have been the Green Bay Packers. But since we're not playing them at home, we can't do that. So, I mean, talk about, salt in the wound, turning the knife, whatever you twisting that knife, whatever it is you want to call it. Dallas Cowboys have to come in to Philadelphia, a primetime game, all America's eyes on you, and watch your hated opponents raise another banner again. And your banners are so old they're starting to dry rot and disintegrate, hanging up in the rafters. They had to reprint them a few times just to keep them going. They got so faded from all the sunlight coming into Jerryland there. But that's the fun part of it. But let me point this out. As of right now, just look, like, the bye week's right in the middle, so that's kind of nice, because we all kind of complained about that bye week being so early. Was it week 6 last year?
Week 5.
Week 5, yeah, and they had, and honestly, they needed it. I think that bye week really gave them that chance to turn things around, because that's what it looked like, at least. But you have 6 1 o'clock games right now, and now I know things can be flexed. I don't see the Eagles getting flexed out of anything right now, especially if you look towards the end of the season. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the only one that's not a 1 o'clock game that we know that's any type of game is that last game in Week 18 against the Commanders. And I have a feeling there's no way that that season's going to fall. Like, they're going to fall apart, and the Eagles are going to just be so dominant to the point that the Commanders that's not going to have some sort of important standings that the NFL is going to want to make sure they're more in the prime time 4 o'clock or even later game. So with that being said, 5 of your 6 1 o'clock games are in the first half before the bye. Yeah. So everything else is prime time, Saturday night, Friday night game. That's right, Black Friday. By the way, James, how many times have we talked about one of our favorite Black Friday is Flyers hockey, right, bud? Friday night, Black Friday game. Usually it's like 12 o'clock game. Well, now you got a 3 o'clock Eagles game. If they're home, that's a back. You can bounce between the stadiums and have a good old time. That, as a fan, that's awesome.
That's a great day. That's a great doubleheader, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's like I said, week 1, you got Dallas. We all know Dallas sucks, but they don't suck that early right away. Everybody's getting there. We know week 1's kind of like the preseason for a lot of teams. A lot of these starters aren't going to even be playing until they see Dallas. like Jalen and a lot of the other guys. So that could be a closer game than it should be. Then you're playing the Chiefs in week 2 in Kansas City, 4:00 game. That's a tough game. I'm not going to go one by one and tell you like win or loss, but nothing. LA usually looks like they're getting better, but I'm not breathing the same Rams hype that a lot of other people are. You still have a quarterback there who he's still Stafford is still a really good quarterback, but he's still a lot older, and they got better in some areas, but they also lost in other areas. Cooper Kupp's not there anymore, and it's in Philly. I'm not super worried about that. Tampa, Eagles in Tampa. I swear to God, it's like we got to make sure the Eagles get a loss on their schedule, so I'm going to put them in Tampa. And it's always when was it last year? Week 4. When are they playing them again? Week 4 at a 1:00 game in Tampa. It's like they always they super glue that onto their roster for the next coming years. So maybe they can get that monkey off their back, but whatever. That is what it is. Then they have the Broncos, who have gotten better, but again, I worry about sophomore slump with some of these guys. So Bo Nix, I wonder to see how he comes at 1:00 in a hostile Eagles October 5th, where it could still be nice out. You're gonna have a rocking link. I think that's tough for the Broncos there. Then, if you notice, twice you got 2 divisional teams back to back, or not back to back. In 3 games, you play them twice. So that starts with the Giants in week 6 and week 8. I think you win both those games. I think the Giants are a crap organization. I don't think they got any better. You can Russell Wilson. You can go back in time and find when Russell Wilson actually was good and bring him on here, and it still doesn't make a difference. You have no O-line. You put on. They brought in. Listen, Abdul Carter. He'll be an Eagle in 5 years. I ain't worried about him. But he's a great piece. A huge improvement. Don't get me wrong. But one piece for this lowly, it's like plugging one hole in the Titanic. You know what I mean? There's a lot of holes here, and you're barely keeping it above water. Minnesota, you're going out to Minnesota. That they're a good team. We'll see where they're going to go there. But who's at their quarterback? You get the bye week. Then it's all right. Green Bay. You're in Lambeau. A primetime Monday Night Football game. That's going to be a great one. But this is where it gets real hard. So after the bye week, you go Green Bay. Then you got Detroit at home. That's going to be. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. Eagles versus Detroit. We thought we were going to see that in the NFC Championship game last year. That didn't happen. So that's going to be a hell of a game. Then you play Dallas in Dallas again. Then you got your Friday night game or your Black Friday game with the Bears. I think, Caleb Williams, I think he's a good quarterback, but I still think he has a lot of excess hype. I think they made some good pieces. I think the Bears will be a better team. I just don't think they're going to be a great team. Justin Herbert doesn't scare me, but Chargers are coming on Monday Night Football. Their team got better. Then you get a little mini bye against the Raiders. They're just going to be god awful. Just not even worried about them. But the end of the season is really what gets me. Washington at Buffalo. Washington at Buffalo, and then Washington at home to end the season. If Washington is as good as they can be, that's going to be a 1-2-3 combo that could really beat up these Eagles. So staying healthy going into the playoffs could become a problem.
Yeah, I'm seeing this more as they are going to try to get and collect as many wins before that Washington set. Just because I know and they know that first game in Washington honestly sets the tempo that either they win and clinch or get closer to clinching the division, or both those games are going to matter for 1 or 2 seeds. So that's going to be interesting. But
let me point this out real quick with the Commanders. I'm not looking past them, and I'm also not worried. I with Jaden Daniels, I think he's legit. I really do. I think like of a lot of the quarterbacks, I think Bo Nix is going to be a good quarterback too. I'm not going to tell you he's like the greatest quarterback, the next Patrick Mahomes or anything like that. But I think Bo Nix is going to be a damn good quarterback. But he could have a sophomore slump, that can happen. Even Jaden Daniels can. I think the least of what I'm worried about is Jaden Daniels. But the Washington Commanders, let me just remind everybody, we've all seen their owner at work. Look across the street at the 76ers, okay, Mr. Josh Harris. And tell me if this sounds familiar, right? 76ers go out, get a lot of guys who are past their prime, who are good at one point, but are like a little long in the tooth now and overpay for a bunch of guys like that and then try to slap them together and make a decent team that just doesn't hold up. Well, what did the Commanders do this year? They got Laramie Tunsil. They re-signed their former Zach Ertz. They went out and they got a lot of guys who were long in the tooth, who were really good in their position at one point in their career. But they did draft well, so I'll give them that. From, again, on paper, we'll see. It's all about developmental. But, you know, I'm not worried about what is it, Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. I think a lot of their, I mean, I want to go back to it. They had a really good run. I'm not taking anything away from Washington. So any Washington fans, you think I'm just a Philly fan who's just hating on your team? No, I'm giving you a lot of kudos. But we all have to be honest with certain things. There's a little luck that ran the Washington Commanders' way. That Chicago game, let's just throw that out there, that Hail Mary catch, whatever you want to call it, that beat the Bears. You know, they don't win that game, which they shouldn't have. You know, it's not as close. They might even be in the playoffs at that point. You know what I mean? There was a couple games that luck kind of was their lady that night. You know what I mean? But when they got there, they became the hot team, and they ran really well. And they played against the Lions, who either A, looked past them, or B, just fell apart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you got to also remember the one game where Jalen got hurt against the Commanders. Like, that game could have also been a game. Yeah.
And they barely squeaked by that one. Yeah. We kept handing them that one. That game was like really the Eagles' worst game all season long. Mm-hmm. And not just because Jalen wasn't in, but they were still dominating even because he went out early. It was like by the beginning, not even for the full first quarter, I think, right? So he went out pretty early. And the Eagles kept like turning the ball over and giving them the opportunities. Because like I talked to a couple Commanders fans and, you know, like, oh, we were this close. I'm like, no, you weren't. There's a 30-point differential. That's not close. That's not close in any game. Okay.
Probably like good on betting terms, but probably.
Yeah, like I know. Not even. I mean, like we beat you. You only beat us when our starting QB went down and our team was just playing just balls terrible that day.
Yeah.
And then you come into Philadelphia in the NFC championship game and you just fell apart. Like, you had no chance. If it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, that probably could have been like the most lopsided NFC championship game of all time. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, they made a lot of dumb moves. They fumbled the ball a lot. If it wasn't for Jaden Daniels' legs and extending some plays and some drives, that could have been just like, if that was Kirk Cousins in there, just or was it who was it, the UFS? Well, no, how about UFSL guy who was like a Sam or not? Sam Howell, whatever. Yeah, like all those guys, that would have been a completely different story. That's why I'm saying Jaden Daniels is legit. But what I'm trying to say is I really think the Commanders need to take it one step at a time, and it could go really either way with them. They could kind of take a couple steps backward before taking forward. So I'm not sitting there, but it could be made out to be Jalen Hurts versus Jaden Daniels, a back and forth for many years to come, bringing some fun back to the NFC East, because I don't see the Dallas Cowboys doing that anytime, and I really don't see the Giants doing that anytime soon.
So if you want to get your hands on Eagles tickets for any of these home games, or maybe you are in another city and you want to get a ticket for one of the away games, check out our great partner at GameTime.co. James, tell them more about it.
Yeah, Joe, today's show is sponsored by our friends over at GameTime.co. Calling all busy Philly sports fans, need tickets last minute, don't worry, GameTime.co, has got you covered. For all your Phillies, especially the Phillies going on right now, the Eagles coming up soon, and if you want to get some Flyers tickets, because obviously Rick talking in town and want to see the orange and black come October, and maybe if you want to see the Sixers, if you want to just continue to cut your nose off to spite your face, but anywho, you could check them out with your seat view before you buy buy and also great and snag on great discounts and so much more at GameTime.co. But remember to scan that QR code at the bottom of your screen right next to Kyle Schwarber, who's been on a tear as of lately, or visit them online at GameTime.co. That's GameTime.co today.
So we
Yes,
will get.
and I've actually used your link. I've used GameTime.co about 3 weeks ago for a Phillies game, 2 weeks, something like that. And worked great, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you guys out, and I completely almost forgot. And when you
Excellent.
did that, I'm like, that reminded me. I had to point that out there.
So, here's the thing. Before we move to the Phillies, I gotta ask. So in the Philadelphia 76ers universe, and Al, you brought this up with Josh Harris. Okay.
Yes.
We have teams in the NBA conference finals, both that have created a team of youth, whether it's through draft or through trade. You have OKC, who is, just killing the league right now. You have the
Team's
Timberwolves
amazing.
with Anthony Edwards and doing what he's doing with the Timberwolves right now, and Julius Randle. You have guys like the teams like the Knicks that you might as well call them the New York Wildcats at this point.
We call it Villanova North.
Villanova
Yeah,
North.
there you
And
go.
so like that's an interesting dynamic. And then you have the Indiana Pacers with Halliburton and everything. So this was supposed to be the Sixers. This was supposed to be what we were. This was the point of the process. Now, we are at a situation where we still have three max guys, Maxey, George, and Embiid. And now we have the third overall draft pick in the upcoming NBA draft. Al, I ask you, so how can, in your mind, Daryl Morey change this, trajectory of the Sixers into what they are, into what they need to be, is shining examples of the four teams that are in the conference finals currently?
Quit. He could quit. He could quit his job. And get the paperwork together. Maybe before he quits, get the paperwork together to sell the damn team. We always say, leadership isn't the most important thing, right, Joe? We've talked about that in many aspects of our lives. Leadership is one of the most important things. And you have an absentee landlord. You have a guy in Daryl Morey who is either trying to sell people a bag of goods that aren't there, or he is so full of his own BS that it's now pouring over. We heard in his interview in 97.5 after the season ended, and he said, well, at the beginning of the season, we were the third highest rated team to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Really?
Oh, God.
Really? That's the demented part of things. Yeah, so quitting's the only thing he can do. One thing that you pointed out there, Joe, with all those things like Halliburton, yes, and all that should have been, they got, listen, the NFL, NBA saw that. They made him get rid of Hinkie. Then they had guys like Clangy come in there, just screw up any good that he could have done with the process. And I was never a big fan of the process. If you ask anybody, we've talked about this to nauseum at times. I've changed my stance. I'm over Joel Embiid. You gotta scrap it. Even to the point you might have to scrap Tyrese Maxey. I know he's still young, but by the time this team can be good again, he might be in an old folks home. You know what I mean? Like it's that's how far down the line it is. But if there's any resemblance, if you look at what's going on right now, the big names aren't in there anymore, right? You don't have your LeBron James. You don't have any like the Clippers, who has a geriatric old folks home in there, or the Sixers, who didn't even make it that far because they were just that bad. You have young, up and coming guys, like guys on the Thunder, like the Wolves. You have the Pacers, who, if you asked me 2 years ago, the Pacers would even be talking about a conference final game. We all laugh at them. Yeah. But they got younger. They brought in the right pieces, and they got smarter. And I'm hoping the Pacers win it all for T.J. McConnell's sake at this point. I don't want to see the Knicks win. The floppiest flopper since LeBron James up there. That's all I need to see. I'm tired of that. That's what the NBA's problem is, and the NBA's talked about it. They're very open about it. They have lost eyeballs, right? They've lost viewership on their product. Why? Because it's the same. You know what the NBA is, and this is for all us old wrestling nuts. WCW at the end of its leg. That's what it is. It's a lot of old guys who were way past their prime, who are getting overpaid, and they're just oversaturating the industry and not giving any room for the young up and coming guys and make them your big stars like the WWE used to do back in the. Now I haven't watched it in years, so I can't really get you talk about this day and age in wrestling, but WCW getting bought out by the WWE, that time frame, that late 90s into early 2000s, that was what WCW was. It was Hulk Hogan in his 107th year of wrestling, coming out with a cane, fighting Macho Man Randy Savage and Lex Luger on his third shoulder replacement. And that's what the NBA, they're not cultivating these young guys.
No.
They're not like saying we need to take them as a good brand for the NBA brand and making them better. They're just still worrying about the same old guys, same LeBron James, same and the Sixers are falling into it. Oh, we're so good. We're just one good player away. No, we're not. I told you before. I think I made this comment before the last time on the show. The Philadelphia 76ers, up until recently, and maybe even now still, are the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA. They are. They are the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA. They think they're better than they are. All right? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this doesn't sound right. They think they're better than they are. They think that they're an elite tier basketball team. They have ownership that is goofy beyond all goofy, and whoever's at the helm GMing, it doesn't matter. There's always somebody messing in there, and they keep bringing in guys who are probably a little bit problems, who don't even want to be there. They overpay for guys way past their prime. Starting to sound awfully familiar, right? Yeah. And they just think they're superior to a lot of teams when they, in fact, are not the superior team. They are mediocre on a good day.
So my next question is, do you think with the third overall pick that it can start to implement more of that youth movement where we can move? Do you think that Daryl Morey can – you brought up earlier about Howie Roseman and how he's learned. Are we just in the stages of Daryl Morey where he still has to learn? Or is this, what it is? Do you think he can mess up the third overall pick selection?
Can he mess up the overall pick selection? Hell yeah. Sure. He just said, hold my beer, Joe Marks. But also I try to call it as I see it. A couple draft picks, McCain and then Tyrese Maxey, he's done well with. It's all about, here's the problem. Because this team is so in flux. There's never from a from a management standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, even a player standpoint, you never know really who's going to be there next year to come, or available next year. Because does Nick Nurse, does he even want to be here anymore? Because if you bring in a really good talent, is he going to cultivate that talent? Or is that talent just going to sit on the bench and be wasted? Like, those are the kind of things that I really do worry about. But end all be all, if you have to take that third overall pick, and it really, this isn't a really stacked draft. I'm not saying, listen, Tyrese Maxey wasn't thought to be the Tyrese Maxey that we have now. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying not to make the pick, but I wouldn't be against if they took it, wrapped it up, and got off of a Joel Embiid contract.
I would agree with that. And I kind of said that. Now, is that to say that I want to bring someone like Kevin Durant over? No, you don't go from one geriatric person to another geriatric person.
If he's on a 1 year left on his contract, yeah, fine. If that's what you have to do,
sure, whatever.
If that's what you have to do, you're gonna most likely to get off the Embiid contract. First part, you have to match the money up. That's right. The one thing. The other thing is you have to you're gonna have to pay to play, and part of the payment's going to be is you're going to take on, because it's not just like Joel Embiid's injured. Joel Embiid's injured, and he's got many more years left on a really bloated contract.
Yeah.
So you got to be willing to take that on. So a third round pick, and you're going to have to take away a couple of their players who are on lesser contracts. So, if Kevin Durant's on his last last year of his leg of his contract, then you're going to have to take that on. And guess what? The Sixers will do it. Think about it. Another old guy past his prime, but you put it. How many people are going to love to see Kevin Durant in a Sixers jersey, even at 107 years old?
Right. It's the Hulk Hogan walking down to the ring, in WCW analogy, like you said.
I was going to ask you, who's Kevin Nash then?
LeBron James, because he thinks he's big. LeBron James, because he thinks he's big sexy over there in Los Angeles. No, I have heard two different trade offers. I've heard the Kevin Durant and Embiid in the 3rd overall pick. I've heard the Lakers say that they would be willing to give up the expiring contracts for Joel Embiid and the 3rd overall pick. For Anthony Davis, I believe. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if Daryl Morey. I think he's in La La Land, because he said in an interview not that long ago that he still believes that without Joel having to do anything else in his career, he's already achieved being a top 10 player in the NBA history. And I just
man, that sounds like Jerry Jones, doesn't it?
It sounds delusional.
It really
that sounds like something Jerry Jones would say about Dak Prescott, right? Wouldn't it be like, like it? That's why I said, like, I don't like. Do you think I don't not like comparing my Philadelphia team to a Dallas team? But in this sense, it's delusional. Like, and that's why you say, what do they have to do? Sell the team's got to maybe be the first level. Like, I said to somebody, like, you know what? Restart the whole organization. Sell the team to let Josh Harris, because he ain't going to sell the team. He's all about making money. He don't care how good we are. He just wants to make money.
Right.
Let him move it to Seattle, become the new Seattle Supersonics franchise, then bring in another franchise and restart Philadelphia over. So we don't have to hear about the 83 championship anymore. We don't have to hear about the Allen Iverson years anymore. We don't have to hear about all that. Sell the team, move it, and then rebuild a new one in a year and just start from scratch here and build it up. And because, I mean, the Sixers are like the Flyers too much anymore. All we hear about is how great they were in the 80s and the 70s, and then they had and that was it. They had some close calls, but that was about it. Like, it's I'm really like, scrap the whole thing and bring in a new Sixers organization totally.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you know what? The one thing I got to talking
as I wear my Sixers jersey, hoodie, but it's a Spectrum hoodie. It's like, so I'm like, all right, this can go anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, you were supporting like the actually good Sixers back in the 80s.
That's the funny part. I always said, I me, I love my jerseys and things like that. And even how much I hate the Sixers, they've had some pretty fire jerseys. They had the this is what it is. This is the Spectrum jersey. And it was the blue jersey with the Spectrum kind of logo with the orange, green, and yellow lettering on the squares on the side and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. That reminds us, me, you guys, maybe not James, Joe, me and you, of like when we used to have to watch like Flyers on Prism and go down to the Spectrum and watch the game and all that stuff. Like, but then they came out with the white versions. I'm like, oh, I hate the Sixers right now, but they are fire. So they had this hoodie, and it's just the Spectrum logo with the old Spectrum outline of the building on it. I'm like, I can rock that. I can rock that.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's move on to a team that's actually setting the world on fire right now, and that's Philadelphia Phillies. Al, I gotta say, man, this team it's herky jerky and throughout the course of this season, but they're definitely making it interesting. What have you seen, both the positives and the concerns, so far for your Philadelphia Phillies?
Well, I mean, the positives in this case is you're beating bad teams, right? Good teams beat bad teams. They're around 500, maybe a little like a game less than 500 against the good teams right now, but they also did struggle coming out the gate with some things. So, but and without being called a homer by anybody, that is baseball a little bit, is up and down. Like I said, being the top team in Major League Baseball on May 24th means nothing. Just means you're not completely out of it yet. You know what I mean? Come 2 months from now, you could be, but it means you're. Listen, they had a great stretch against some really bad teams. I mean, two teams who've already fired their coaches, might I add, in the last two series before the Athletics. and they went up again Pittsburgh. Then it goes Colorado. And what was I doing in those series? I'm watching their bullpen, the other team's bullpen, because what am I looking for? The bullpen pieces. The whole Alvarado thing was a giant kick in the dinghy, but it's not like a bullet through the brain base type situation for this team, but a bullpen that was also a little questionable to begin with, and you take arguably your best bullpen piece, and he's shelved until about late August, and can't be used in the playoffs. He's dead to me in this case. Get lost, man. You screwed our team over, and you get out. Like, I don't even want to, like, even if he comes back for 6 weeks or whatever it would be, unless we're desperate, I really don't want to see him in a Phillies uniform, to be honest with you. So with that being said, it's like, they're beating these bad teams, and they're keeping up. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games. And the other teams that people were lauding, like the NL West, like, let's talk about that for a second. Everybody was stroking the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants. It's just like they didn't have enough hands to stroke them with. That's how much they were loving the NL West. It's all you heard media talking about, like, the NL West. Well, I mean, they're good teams. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Dodgers are 32-19. They're right behind the Phillies. The Giants are 30-21, right behind them 2 games. And the Padres are 28-21. Now we haven't played. We played the Dodgers, and even when the Dodgers came out in an 8-game winning streak, we beat them, and we handed them their first series loss and their first loss of the season. But they're 5-5 in the last 10 games. The Giants are 6-4 in the last 10 games. The Padres are 3-7 in the last 10 games. So it's all about, like, striking while the iron's hot. In baseball, you dominate the bad teams, and if you go 500 or better against the good teams, you're going to get yourself a pretty good spot in October.
Yeah, I mean, this team has definitely thrived with, beating, and I know we've heard this countless times. Oh, well, they're beating the bad guys. They're not, beating the good teams. But, in some perspectives, I see it as you have to beat the bad teams. Don't look past the bad teams. We've yelled it from the rooftops in this city countless times. They overlook them. They play down to their competition. All of those things. And you have to play to essentially put these bad teams in their spot, and they have for the most part. And when it comes down to the end of the season, the wins will matter if you can accumulate enough of them. That way,
They're not weighted. Don't forget, because I always tell people you can beat the Rockies 4 times, and you can beat the Dodgers 4 times. There's still 4 Ws. It doesn't make a difference. And that's the other thing. Don't forget the NL West. They all get to play the Rockies a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think the Rockies are maybe still not in double-digit wins just yet. There's a possibility they can get to June and still not be in double-digit wins.
They could be worse than the White Sox.
That's saying a lot.
Right now, they're already on pace to be since 1900 something, James.
Yeah.
Like the worst team in starting baseball, hitting 40 losses earlier than any other team in baseball did.
It's
1934
like, Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
Wow.
And here's the thing: this is how I preface this. Let's take a good team, right? The Dodgers. Everybody thinks the Dodgers are probably the top team in the NL to go back to the World Series and possibly win the whole thing, right? Well, they started off against the Detroit Tigers, who are a really good team right now, but struggle coming out of the game. They swept them. Then they swept the Braves, and they met us, right? Then they played the Nationals. Then they played the Cubs, who are a good team. Then they played the Rockies. Then they played the Rangers, that are a bad team as well. Then they played the Cubs again in a 2-game series. Good team. But then they played the Pirates. Then they played the Marlins. Then they played the Braves again. And then they played the Marlins again. And then they played the Athletics. I mean, nobody's sitting there telling them, they played the Diamondbacks. And nobody's sitting there telling them, they didn't play anybody. Good. Right. Why? Because we're hyper-focused. We know what our schedule is. I can tell you who the Phillies are playing over the next couple of weeks. I know we're going to be seeing the Brewers soon. We're going to be seeing the Pirates again soon. You're going to be seeing the Braves again, I think, like around Father's Day or in mid-June there. Mm-hmm. But if you just look at all the teams that the Dodgers played, most of those teams, more of those teams are under 500.
Mm-hmm. So my next question, and I feel like I've asked this question to you several times throughout the course of the time we've known each other, Al, and that is, how do you fix Aaron Nola? Help me to help him, man. Like, we need to hope that Aaron Nola can get right, so that way we can have another, starting pitcher weapon in our arsenal going forward for this season. So, how would you help Aaron Nola?
Doing exactly what they're doing. This whole air quotes ankle injury thing. It's funny. I said this. I said they need to give Aaron Nola a phantom injury, and like literally the next day he comes out with
Yep.
his ankle injury. Like that's kind of how I looked at it. Like they're doing what they should be doing. I'm not worried right now about Aaron Nola. I worried a little bit about if there was an injury, and I think maybe there was. Maybe there's a mild injury. Maybe there is an ankle injury, and he can't throw off it right, and it's in his brain or whatever, or maybe whatever. But what they can do for him is what they're doing right now. Do I think Aaron Nola's toast? No, I don't. Do I think Aaron Nola can get back to the swing of things? I think so, depending on if there is an injury and what kind of injury we're dealing with. I mean, he did take a couple ticks off his. I think they were like 2 miles per hour low on his velocity. I heard, I think it was on average.
Mm-hmm.
So is that an injury, or is that he's getting older? I mean, we have to hope because we still got a lot of contract ahead of with this guy. That's not the case, but I think what they're doing now is what they need to do. I'm not as worried because we saw now one sample size against a meandering Pirates team, but Mick Abel, stud, looked like a stud finally. We always talk that Mick Abel experiment when they're going to pull the wrapper off of him. And then if Andrew Painter comes up, now I don't want to put all my balls in that bag of two guys who are untested really for the most part. Especially a guy coming off Tommy John and Andrew Painter. But, I mean, you are pretty hot and heavy right now on, you have Taijuan Walker, who's been pitching well enough, and who would come to the playoffs. Who cares about your fifth starter anywho? He's going to be moved to the pen, or if he's even moved at all, depending on how well this team's doing at that point. And then Ranger Suarez. So right now, I'm not like, let him take his time. You're playing well. Take his time. If I don't see him for another week or so, that's great. Let him go down and get a tune-up game in the minors. I know they normally don't do that with guys of his caliber, but let him go do it. Maybe just let him get that, like let him go strike out a couple dudes, get a little confidence back in there, and maybe between that and him feeling a little better, we'll get the Aaron Nola. And like, listen, even if Aaron Nola is a solid 3 guy this year, with Jesus Luzardo, a punch of Zach Wheeler, Luzardo, Nola, Ranger, Ty, and then you still have 2 other guys who can come in and play. So maybe Andrew Painter does come up here, and they got to maybe you see Taijuan Walker and Ranger Suarez go help bolster the bullpen a little bit, and then bring in a couple more pieces, and you could be able to have space to bring in a bat, because I wholly expect Dombrowski to be the most aggressive we've ever seen him in the Phillies by the deadline. Because to be honest with you, for all the aggressiveness we heard about him, hasn't been very aggressive to date as a Philly for Dombrowski.
Yeah, I agree. And so I wanted to kind of pitch in a little bit of my idea about Aaron Nola. So you brought up about how he's about a mile or 2 off of his fastball and a couple other pitches that he throws. My thing is, and you saw it with Taiwan, you saw it with Ranger. I think you even saw it with Nick Nelson last year. Is that when you put a long reliever / starter in the bullpen, sometimes their velocity kicks up because they only have 1 inning to empty the tank, 1 or 2 innings to empty the tank. So adverse to having to sustain power and control and all that within 5 or 6 innings. I would move closer to the playoffs. I would move Aaron Nola to the bullpen, because I honestly think that if you move Aaron Nola to the bullpen, maybe he'll get 2 things done. He'll get that velocity will just spike back up, which will be good. So maybe he'll have more life on his fastball and his slider and his other pitches and whatnot. The other thing is you kind of prevent him from having a dead arm towards the end of the season. And I worry about what if that's what we're starting to see now, is that his, like you said, Al, he's getting older. So you have to kind of be regimented enough to be able to figure out how your body is going to react from day to day, from start to start. So I would move Aaron Nola to the bullpen. I think Ranger Suarez is not long to be a Philly for very much longer. I think he will be moved at the trade deadline. I also think that if they have a good dance partner by the trade deadline, they could move Taiwan Walker. Um, so it'll be interesting. But Al, who do you see? What do you see? Well, I guess it's a two-part question. Who do you see and what do you see Dabrowski doing and bringing in for the Phillies, ahead of the trade deadline?
Oh, it's got to be a bullpen piece right now. I'm still on the I still believe that Justin Crawford is going to be coming up here at one point for the center field position. I think there was just a matter of time before they bring him up. I think they were giving Brandon Marsh a chance to play better since coming back from injury. Rojas a chance to get his own. But I think ultimately Justin Crawford is going to be that center fielder. I would not be surprised if you move on from a Johan Rojas. If that is the plan at the deadline, you might catch a couple, decent arms in the bullpen, an arm or two in the bullpen. But it's
Even
going
though
to be
he had
bullpen.
an Angels in the outfield moment last night.
Yeah, well, that might be that might just up his selling aspect. It really depends on what they feel they need, and where you have a logjam, because you have a logjam at starting pitcher. So maybe that is why Ranger or Taiwan. Now, I still don't think you get a lot for Taiwan Walker, even if you're doing well, because he's still a fifth or fourth starting guy in a rotation, and he still has a fairly bloated contract. So unless you really you got a guy who's like, we need, we had a starting pitcher, who's out for the season now because he needs Tommy John surgery.
Mhm.
It would have to be kind of a perfect storm to really gather and get anything for him and try to grab somebody who could be a half decent starting pitcher and be willing to give up any real pieces plus take on his bloated bag. Now Ranger is on his last year, so that could be an interesting concept for the Phillies. We're not really thinking about signing him. We're signing him for what he's going to want to sign for. So maybe they move on from him because we have a logjam at starting pitching, and we can get a couple bullpen arms for him. But like I said earlier, I really think it's the bullpen, and that's why I'm watching. Look at the A's. The A's brought up 5 guys last night, Joe. 5 guys. They were trying to just stir the pot somehow, right? They're not even this. By the way, I know they're in Sacramento, but they're not the Sacramento A's. They are just the Athletics, not the Oakland Athletics, not the Vegas Athletics. They are nothing. They are just the meandering team known as they're like Cher. They're the Athletics. You know what I mean? And they're just happen to be playing in Sacramento.
Right.
So there's a team, we've talked about Mason Miller how many times? We saw him last night. Now the Sterner. Sterner is a guy who has some good movement. He throws three pitches. I think it's a fastball, curveball, and a slider, and he throws them well. But he's on a team that probably be willing to move on from, even like Mason Miller. But they're gonna command a big bag for Mason Miller.
Yeah.
So they're not going to take on a Ranger. They're not going to take on. They're going to want youth pieces. They're going to want big pieces from our organization. So that I don't know if you're going to be able to get Mason Miller, but Sterner, go to Colorado. Bird, he's another decent bullpen arm that could definitely bolster up what we have now.
As long as he doesn't piss off Harper again.
Yeah, right. That might have burned him a little bit on that one. But in Pittsburgh, they even have guys there too that could, they have some decent bullpen arms. But really, do you make a big move and make a big splash to get a guy like Mason Miller in here? Because we don't have a closer, and for whatever reason, it's the one Dombrowski move that really Tomper. I try not. I know that Tomper gets a lot of hate, and I think it's a little overblown and overbloated. But the one thing I will agree on is just pick a goddamn closer. But it looks like they were trying to do that with Jordan Romano, and what we saw last night, I could see why maybe they're a little gun shy. So maybe you go out and he's young. You got a lot of club options still with him. So it's not like you're giving up the bag for a rental piece, right?
Right.
So you're really stabilizing your bullpen for years to come with a guy like Mason Miller. And we saw him, actually took a plane with the Phillies last year because they got beat by the A's going into the All-Star break, and he took a flight with the other Phillies to the All-Star game, and they got to sit there and talk with Bryce Harper and them for a while. So maybe they got a little buddy with them. My point is, what are you, Joe and James, willing to give up for a guy like a Mason Miller or something along those lines?
James, I'll let you take that first.
Yeah, it's a very good question because obviously you don't want to get rid of your farms, like majority of your not majority of your farm system, but
all right, Joe or James, I'll ask you this: who in our farm system, in your eyes, is untouchable?
Painter.
At this point, I think it is. I mean, I think they're like sold on him coming up, so that's a good point. Who else?
Well, after McAble's performance, I can't deny that. I mean, he went against one of the best pitchers in the league and won.
And Skeens, yeah.
Well, listen, I mean,
in the same category.
Yeah, I say I agree with you. Probably in their eyes, he is a little untouchable. But if you get a call from the A's, 1-for-1, Joe Marks, Mason Miller for Mick Abel.
Yeah, he's not that untouchable. He's not.
That's my point. Is like if you got to give him a whole bag for him, I understand. But 1-for-1, I do that in a heartbeat. I mean, Mick Abel he's not like he's old or anything, but he's been a little older for a guy down there, and we've seen him play one good game, right? We know what Mason Miller is. He's done well outside of last night, considerably for a team that's been borderline hot garbage most of the time. So, here's the funny thing is, last night was the fourth time he was in a game in all of the month of May. Wow. For Mason Miller. He pitched 3 times before last night because why? Nobody ever needed their closer because they suck. You know what I mean? And his arm's fresher than most probably right now.
Probably.
So you told me 1-for-1, Mick Abel for Mason Miller, I'm pulling that trigger right away.
Yeah. I think honestly, like if you have that opportunity for that type of player, that caliber. And look, we've seen where some of these guys that are on inferior teams come to a team that is like the Phillies, that's built like the Phillies, and like thrive, like hit it to another level. So yeah, hopefully, I know they were looking at Mason Miller last trade deadline. So it'll be interesting if they finally pull the trigger on it. And it's like you said earlier, Al, you got to hope Dabrowski's more aggressive than he's been in the past during the trade deadline, because it's just not going to get it done if he's passive. He's got to put all the chips in the center of the table. I
think most chips are. Andrew Painter, definitely don't think he is.
No.
What's his name? Aiden Miller.
I was going to say,
I think Justin Crawford, Aiden Miller, Andrew Painter, and maybe Ty8, however you say his name. Because you're going to need a catcher in the future.
Yeah.
JT's getting older. Marchand and Stubbs are not going to be a catcher of the future for the Phillies, and he's just looking really good. So I think unless they're like, listen, we're pushing all the chips in for this year. I think those are your 4 untouchables right now. Everybody else is in my eyes. Now, again, don't sell the whole farm, but some people hold on to these things a little too tight. But ultimately, if you want to win, you got to pay to play.
So my next question is, speaking of paying, there's a guy on our team that is on another stratosphere, and as a fan of the Phillies, I need him re-signed, and that's Kyle Schwarber. This guy, he's like a fine wine. He gets better with age, and like this guy just keeps like upping his game, whether it's home runs, whether it's leadoff, whether it's cleanup, whether it's pop me in the outfield, whether it's like just his cardio, being able to go from second to home on a hit. Like Kyle Schwarber needs to get re-signed. My question to you, Al, is why isn't he re-signed yet?
Because the Phillies gambled and lost. I mean, in this case, they're going to have to pay. Just kind of like just like they kind of did with Aaron Nola. They were talking to Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola, and then could not come to an agreement before the end of the last season, or the season before, whatever it is when they signed him on. And he had a really good season, and they had to pay him, and they had to pay him good because he was the hottest starting pitcher in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's going to happen with Kyle Schwarber.
Yep.
I think Kyle wants to stay here, but also he's got to want to be kept here. And a lot of people talk about his age. Him and Bryce Harper are the same age, right? And we still got many years left of Bryce Harper. Right. I mean, like you said, is like he found himself. Pretty much found himself last year. Because, for the first couple of years, it's like, oh, Kyle Schwarber doesn't start playing baseball until June. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of the running joke. Like, is it June yet? Because we need to see a little Kyle Schwarber action here. But, I mean, like you said, in lead off, and I'm glad he's out of lead off, by the way. I mean, I was okay with it. We were winning. We were doing okay. It was a little different. But him in that fourth spot, protecting Bryce. Number one, like I said, there's two things right now that Tomper doesn't do, and I don't know if it's organizational or Tomper or both, that he doesn't do, that I don't agree with big time is, number one, like I said, name a closer. Closers are head cases. You need to let them know who they are. And number two is leave Bryson Stott in the leadoff spot. I don't know how many times I got to say this. Just let him play. If he's ever going to get better against left-handed or right-handed pitching, you need to let him hit. And he's been doing really well. And I love that 1, 2, 3, 4 punch of Stott, Trey, Harper, and Schwarber. Because then you have Castellanos who's still playing pretty well. And then look at Alec Boehm. He's definitely stepped up. He's batting over. He's like a 330 something in the month of May. And I think his put it this way, he was sub 200 right coming into May.
Yes.
And he's a 269 batter right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, he really drove up the ranks. So now you got him playing well. When you get a Mundo Sosa in there, that's an additive. Like, I can't play him all the time, but when you get him in there, JT's been playing pretty well for the most part. I mean, JT, I only worry about him for catching because he can really, he orchestrates a game like none other. But when he hits, that's icing on the cake. And when Rojas and Marsh do well, that's fine. That's what I'm saying. Leave it alone. Like, there's just way too much flux for this team.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? Here's the thing with some of the players. You brought up about Alec Boehm kind of doing better. Bryce Harper's doing better. I mean, this is a guy that a little less than like a week or two ago, this guy was batting 238, and now he's up to 280. And so, like, this is a guy that we need to have on this team leading the way. But I feel like Kyle Schwarber's kind of like that, vocal leader, whereas Bryce is the emotional leader. Bryce is the heartbeat, and he's the heart of the team. Kyle is the brains. I'm sorry to say. Not calling Bryce stupid or anything.
No, I actually see what you're saying, and I agree with it, Joe. I know it's something that we often say to each other when we're talking sports.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think he is the emotion of the team, because when Bryce is having bad emotions or he's upset with himself, you can see the team struggling. And when Bryce is feeling loosey-goosey, the rest of the team feels that way. But I think from a guy who's going to stand up in front of the team in the locker room. Plus, listen, one thing that Kyle Schwarber has over Bryce is he's never won a champion. He's won a championship. Bryce hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's been there. He knows what it feels like to walk down a parade and get a World Series ring and all that stuff. If I was him, I'd be wearing that thing around my neck right now, like on a chain. Be like, guys, you want to feel this? You need to live this life. And I think you could see Kyle Schwarber doing that. I could see him standing up in the middle of the locker room. I've been in that locker room, and I've seen this team play against, or come out again like a bad loss or consecutive amounts of losses and being tormented by the media about why you struggle. I love that question. I used to sit there when I was in the media scrum with some guys, and like some of the guys who were cool. Listen, media scrums are always weird. A lot of these media guys they don't talk to anybody. Like, they don't want to talk with. But some guys will really talk to anybody. And I'm like, why do guys always ask, well, what do you think's wrong? Well, if I knew it was wrong, I'd fix it. Like, I'm waiting for right. like it's like if I knew where my keys are, they're not lost. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's kind of thing is like I never understood. But I've been in that locker room. I've seen that locker room when they've been high, and I've been seeing that locker room when it's been low. And Kyle Schwarber is that leader by far.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, do you think that they, whether it's during this season, see, I've heard that they are not going to do the negotiating for this contract during the season. That's just not how business is done.
They
But that
usually don't. They find it as a distraction.
yeah,
Because here's the problem: is if you offer him something and he finds his slap in the face, or he throws something at, or his people throw something at you. Now with Kyle, I'm probably not as worried about this as much as maybe other people would be. But if you offer him something, he finds a slap in the face, that could affect him on the field. If he
yeah,
feels like the organization's not showing him the appropriate love that he deserves, or he plays down because he's not getting what he wants, it could affect his again. That could be anybody. I don't think Kyle's that kind of guy, but I can see why you don't do that. But I think, listen, they're going to sign him for at least 4 more years, I think, and I'm really okay with that. He's a really good DH. I don't see him with the DH being universal now. I see him playing for another 4 years easily and at a high level.
yeah. And I mean, like, that's the thing when you're talking about this guy being the league leader or up there in the league lead with home runs. This is a guy that I feel like has reinvented himself into almost anything you want. So it'll be really interesting. I think I always worry about, especially in baseball, for these guys that kind of go onto the open market. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West. It's like you saw it with Soto this past off season. Like the best offer and the offer that entices the player the most is pretty much the offer.
Oh, the Machado and Harper year when they were trying to remember there was talks the Phillies were trying to bring both of them in.
Yeah,
I mean it got crazy.
yeah, absolutely. I remember the day that they signed Harper for that amount of money and for those years, and the first inclination was, wait, this is stupid money. We don't do that. Like,
That's what they said. Who's going to spend stupid money?
Right.
And he did.
So,
and if you look at it now, Joe, I mean, why do you think Harper was asking for more money?
Yeah.
Because he is not nearly the highest paid player in baseball. I think he's like, I don't even know if he's top 25 anymore.
No. Not after you got, like, for sure the Soto deal, the all the deals with why am I blanking on his name? The guy from the Dodgers.
Manny Ramirez?
No,
not Manny Ramirez. I'm sorry.
Japanese born.
Ohtani.
Well, you have Soto and Ohtani's contracts that bloat the market. Yeah, you start to kind of drop down. I mean, it's kind of like the Jalen Hurts contract. Jalen Hurts got paid, and he was the highest paid quarterback. And like a day later, Lamar Jackson outdid him by $5 million. And now you have Brock Purdy that gets a contract extension for $265 million, and he's like one of the high paid quarterbacks. Well, at the time when Howie signed Jalen that early, people criticized Howie, but now look at it. It looks like he got him for bargain basement money. So I think for Josh Middleton,
I'm sorry, Bryce Harper's number 9 with overall contract. I was a little off, but I mean, still. he's still he's $330 million compared to what's going, like you said, Juan Soto, who got the bag at $765, and Shohei Ohtani at 7. But I'm saying, think about it. At number 9, he's making half of Ohtani, or less than half, and way less than half than Juan Soto.
Yeah. And like, you got to kind of keep in mind. Now, here's my next question about Kyle Schwarber. There have been do you feel like Kyle Schwarber right now, if you had a vote, would you vote for Kyle Schwarber to be MVP? Do you think he's having that good of a season right now?
Well, we just lost Al. But, so I'll answer the question that's all right with you, Joe.
Yeah, no problem.
So with Schwarber, I think the other thing that's really surprising to me that he's just playing at an all-time good level, and I think
dropped out on me on there. That was weird.
Yeah.
That
happened before.
Did you hear the question?
No, go ahead, repeat it.
So with Kyle Schwarber being what he is right now, do you hear that there's been chants and cheers and all that? Do you think Kyle Schwarber is playing at MVP caliber right now?
Sure. I mean, he's in the conversation. He's a top. I mean, either he's the top or he's close to top with 17 home runs. So he's on the beating his own record and possibly hitting 50 long balls at the end of the year. 37 RBIs, batting at 251. I mean, remember the days that we were just happy if he was above 200. Like that was like the big stat for him. Like, we were so excited that he was above 200. It was just so weird. He had all these RBIs, 37 RBIs right now. But he has all these RBIs, but here he is. He has a 200 batting average. He was always this weird unicorn-esque type like situation. How can you have a 200 batting average and then like have an OPS of this and all these RBIs? Because like right now, like let's look at this. I'm looking at his career. As of right now, last year he was how many home runs? Yeah. So okay, look at every year. So he had 110 runs last year.
Wow.
108 runs the year before. You know what I mean? 100 runs the year before that. He's just getting better.
Yeah,
every year.
I mean, that's him as a Philly right now. 100 runs, 108, 110, and he's at 38 already in May for so far in the 2025.
Well,
So,
I think that the Phillies have finally taken our advice seriously. Al, we said it years ago. Just hide the calendar in the locker room, in the clubhouse.
they all say June. The Phillies calendar just says June. Every time you flip the counter, June Arch, June A.
It's like, just hide the damn calendar. Don't tell him what day it is. Like, just hide the damn calendar.
They have special glasses they put on him, so every time he sees a calendar, it says June on it. No, he broke that. That's why I'm saying he's worth it. That's why you could talk MVP. I don't think Kyle Schwarber was ever thought about being an MVP because of that whole I have to wait to June to get hot, and he was very streaky and then not batting above 200. But also, like I said, he's a unicorn, having all the RBIs he had, all the extra base hits that he had all the OPS that he had, but then he had his 200 batting average, was just this weird unicorn-esque type situation. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, as a Philly, right? He was 218. It was a 218 in 2022. He was a 197 in 2023. And then he got to 248 last year. And right now he's batting at 251. Yeah. So, that's my point is, he became consistent. So that's why I think MVP is the conversation for him. Yeah. And outside of him being a great guy and a leader, he hustles. He is that guy. But ultimately, he's got the numbers. He's got the tout. And is he a guy who could lead a really if we lose Kyle Schwarber or we lost Alvarado, you don't just easily replace him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And here's the thing, I may be going out on a limb when I say this, but I feel like with this Phillies team, with Schwarber and all that right now, and maybe it is the rose-colored glasses, but I have this Phillies team pulling in a lot of hardware. I have, if Painter comes up sooner rather than later, I feel like you could have a Rookie of the Year with him. I feel like you could have a Cy Young with Luzardo. I feel like you could have a Silver Slugger with Amundo Sosa if he gets more at bats. I feel like you could have the MVP with Kyle Schwarber. I feel like you could have a Gold Glove with Wheeler or with JT. And then to cap off, getting another pennant or possible World Series championship. By the time this hits November, I could see this team, if they keep on the trend that they're in and the pace that they're in, they could pull in a lot of hardware this season. Do you agree, Al?
Sure. Silver Sluggers, golden, the golden bats, the whole 9 yards. You can see that this team has it, and they always have. That's my thing is beginning of the season, I know we've kind of been let down a lot, and I think on top of it, with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, the Phillies had, the expectation of them rose that much higher. But on paper, we have one of the better teams in baseball. You find much better starting rotation. 99% of the MLB would swap our starting rotation with theirs any day of the week.
Yeah.
they would take 90% of the bats out of our lineup right now. They would eat our scraps in Johan Rojas. You know what I mean? Like that. This team is a good team. I get it though. I understand. Like, we went to the World Series. We've been moving backwards. World Series, lost in the in the championship game, and then you can't even make past the divisional round. You got just completely embarrassed by the Mets. And trust me, that taste is still in my mouth. But I put a lot of that. I said Tomper needs to learn his lesson. I'll tell you one of the things that really bothered me with that Mets thing. Now, I don't think this was the reason they lost, but did not help. He turned the bullpen on top of itself. And like you were talking about moving Aaron Nola there and all that, and I talked about moving. I don't think that's the answer at all. Because here's the thing is he turned that bullpen. He put all the good guys, the guys he would close with or go like 8-9 hole with, and he put them at the 6 and 7 hole and let the other guys like I don't. Why would you change the sauce at this point? Like that's one thing I did not like, and I hope if we see that again, I might lose my mind.
Right.
Yeah, but like I said, this team on paper is a really good team. So I understand the expectation. I understand they've let us down. But like you said, Joe, and this is what we agree about this as well. That's twice now. Better write this down. We agree about it. The future is bright. I mean, look at the Iron Pigs, man. Look at Lehigh Valley right now. They are killing it right now. There is some really good players that are about to come up. So hopefully this Phillies think about it. Even if Phillies lose or win it all this year, next year looks really good. You're probably going to move on for some contracts, right? Like Nick Castellanos, I know they tried moving him. Maybe they'll be able to get a little bit something from this year. Kyle Schwarber, you'll probably extend. You're going to have Bryce Harper still. Zach Wheeler and Nola are going to be locked in. All this stuff. Then you're going to have, like you said, you're going to have Andrew Painter. You're probably going to have Justin Crawford. You might even be able to move on easily from Alec Boehm and put in Aiden Miller at third base or something like that. Like you're going to be able. Like the future is bright, win or lose. That's the beauty of it because they have a lot of untouchables, but they still have a lot of good pieces that are touchable that can be moved on from and bolster this team this year and going forward. That's why I said I would love to keep Mick Abel because you could have Wheeler, like you could lose Ranger, you can lose Taijuan Walker, and you still have Wheeler, Nola, Painter, Abel, right? But if you also take Abel and you go 1 for 1 and get a Mason Miller for him, you just bolstered your closing spot for a while. So you can't go wrong either way there.
Yep.
Well, we're going to wrap it up. I want to say thank you to Al for jumping on with us and talking some Phillies sports. Al, where can people find you?
Oh, okay, cool.
At Big Al Sports with a Z. Big Al Sports with a Z on Twitter. I help out over at It's a Wrap. I help out at Football Stories on Wednesdays occasionally with them when I can. Anybody wants me, I'm here. Like you guys, I'm here to guest. It keeps my legs stretched, guys. I can't do it full time like I used to anymore. I do miss the hustle. I miss working with you guys like wholeheartedly. For those who don't know, I mean, we worked together from 2019 and on, Joey.
Yeah, I think it was during COVID too. I think
right before COVID and on. So miss working with you guys. Love what you're doing. I do check in. Maybe I don't get to chat in there as much, but I am checking in. I even use your promo code, like I told you. Support you guys. Support what you do. Love the work you guys do. Keep it up, and I'd be looking forward. Hopefully, let's talk again. Maybe like August and September, we can start talking a little October baseball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start of the Eagles season. All right, guys. I appreciate you. I got to head out and pick up the kids, so I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, my brother. We appreciate you.
See you guys later. Have a great one.
So I also want to thank my great producer, James Scorza. Dude, killed it today. I know it was not much of a conversational piece from you, but we'll always get some add-ins later on.
Yeah,
is there anything? Here's my question, I guess, to you as kind of like a whole hard thing. With the Phillies, with the upcoming schedule, what are you thinking? Like you got the Athletics.
Yeah.
You're gonna have, some difficult stretches coming up when we face the Braves again.
Yeah.
The Brewers are gonna come in and you're gonna have Reese and that excitement. You think that this Phillies team is ready for the long haul? 8 straight games.
Well, I mean, what's the craziest thing about it? Even you and Al alluded to was very fascinating that Yeah, sure. You're being on the small teams like the Rockies and even like the Athletics. Even last night was a little bit too close to comfort a little
Yeah.
bit, but I will say this though: if they continue to have this level of success that they had all this last couple games and the last 9 out of 10 games, I think this team can go very far. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, I mean, look, we all know we're homers about this team. We want to have the level of success that they want to have. Um, but I really do like what they do right now. I mean, the one thing that was really astounding to me last night, especially with that bullpen, Topper brought it up with Scott Fransky. I think it was like, and it caught my eye. I said to myself, is that this bullpen is just so. I mean, in a way, it's phasing on all cylinders right now, Joe. That's the most important thing. And the starting pitching is actually without Aaron Noah. I mean, they actually look better. And I think I mean, yeah, Aaron Noah's gonna like do a couple bullpen sessions to get back to normal and try to get him back to normal slowly but surely. But that's the most important thing. If this Phillies team gets to where they are at the same point of August and September when they make that jump, the team could be really exciting to watch once again.
Yeah, so we are gonna say goodbye for right now, but please, we hit that like and subscribe button for Hardcore Sports Network and go over to our sister station at Stream Punk Entertainment and hit the like and subscribe. If I were all of you, I would come and tune in next Saturday at 9 a.m.
Gonna be a fun
James,
show, man.
we have a very special guest. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, so this week we actually did a little of did a little bit of the lawyer work to try to invite some guests on our show, and we have a very special guest coming up next week from the Philadelphia Flyers on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Jim Jackson will be joining us next week, talking all things puck. Obviously, the conference final still going on right now in the NHL. Flyers got a new coach with Rick Tocchet, but most importantly, that show should be very exciting to watch. So please tune in tomorrow. I'm sorry, tune in to next week on another edition of the Pass and Have Sports Show, where JJ will talk all things Flyers, and we cannot wait to talk to him. So hopefully you'll be tuned in. To everybody who is a big Flyers fan, I advise everybody to be tuned in next Saturday, like Joey said, 9 a.m. right here on Hardcore Sports Network and our sister station, Stream Punk Entertainment.
So for James Scorza, for Al Zaffiri, for Joe Marks right here, we are the Patterson Ave Sports Show, and we are out. See you next Saturday, Philly.
See ya.